Hello, everyone, and welcome to Privacy Chats with Rachel and John. Today, you have Rachel and Jay Averitt, who's here to talk to us about privacy engineering. Hello, Jay.
Hey, Rachel. So happy to be here. We've know we've interacted on LinkedIn, and I've always been a fan of what you guys are doing, and so glad to be here with you.
I'll appreciate it. Yes, the power of the privacy professional network, am I right? Just
Uh,
bringing us together and talking about wonderful ideas. I know you do a lot of great writing on LinkedIn, and I just want to shout that out because it's so thought-provoking, and I'm glad that there's conversation started for folks like you on that platform.
oh, thanks. You're far too kind. I mean, mainly it's just I enjoy interacting with people, especially like in the remote world we're living in. It's really nice to, especially like in privacy, where I don't know how you feel, but when I go to a party, it's very difficult to explain to people what exactly I do.
Oh, close to
So
impossible.
right,
You
right.
know?
So I mean, I'll start out with I'm in tech, and then if someone like digs deeper, I will like explain to them what I do. But yeah, it's
You have
so
to feed
it's
off their reactions and kind of see if the the gears are turning. And that's not as light on anyone. Like what we do is very nuanced and can be very niche, but it is incredibly important.
exactly.
Well, let me start by asking about your career journey, if you will. I mean,
Sure.
most speaking for myself, most privacy professionals take it seems to take a different unique route for each individual, but it all kind of makes sense at the end. So why don't we hear yours?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's right. I mean, I know outside of like the folks who went to Carnegie Mellon for a master's in privacy engineering, like straight out of undergrad. Nobody really chose a career in privacy from the beginning. It's something that like people kind of stumble into. And I mean, that's the way it was for me. I practiced law for about a decade before I made a switch to kind of technical privacy, and did tech stuff before law school, wanted to get back. And when I was like seeing so much stuff being based in the cloud, in my software license agreements, I started thinking about the privacy implications of that. And I was thinking, hey, this is really interesting. And started like, but back in like 2012, 2013, there was no GDPR, there was only like HIPAA and GLBA and things like that. So there wasn't like a whole lot you could do from a technical privacy angle. And
Yeah.
then when GDPR came out, I was like, oh wow, there's actually people working on the technical side of privacy. And so I was like, okay, this is a great way to sort of get away from the law, actually working on contracts all the time, and then actually get my hands more on technology. But at the same time, all the stuff I had learned in law school about reviewing regulations and such definitely comes in handy when it comes to privacy.
Absolutely. And I think it's amazing the timing of your kind of entry it sounds like into the privacy space specifically because I just think of cloud as being that the AI buzzword of that era, right? And that was around the time
For
like you said
sure. I
that
mean,
GDPR was getting really up to speed and seeing a facelift from the prior iterations of what, became GDPR.
yeah, I mean, early it wasn't that long ago, like 10 years ago, where pretty much everybody was kind of shifting from the on-prem model to cloud. And, for companies that were solely on-prem, that was scary from a privacy standpoint. And, now we're uploading everything to Amazon or Microsoft or Google, and what privacy controls are in place. And that was basically what got me interested in one, just playing with the cloud in terms of, okay, how does this actually work? And then like actually considering the privacy implications.
Yeah. And so that's that your technical and also legal background, I think makes you uniquely fit from a privacy engineering perspective. I'm not sure if you're a team lead or not, but I can absolutely see that requirements funnel into like practical applications being very valuable for a team that, probably does come from a primarily very technical background and is wondering like what the heck do we need to do these things for? Or what does it need? Really translating it down to like the lowest layer and seeing results.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. I mean, because I think, you know, when you're doing is it's funny. I've been doing a lot of shadowing of people doing technical privacy reviews because we have some new folks on our team, and and then I'll talk to the folks that I've shadowed afterwards and ask them different things and ask them, you know, what they thought, and they say, oh, well, I shadowed so and so on the team, and they were digging way deeper into the tech of it, and I was like, you know, I think that's what it is in privacy, is that we all kind of bring a different skill set to it, and so like if I'm looking at something, um, you know, I may I certainly like to dig into the technical details, but you know, there's other folks who are software engineers that worked in software engineering for a long time, and they like go way deep into the weeds, and that's probably fine. But it's also like you've got to keep the big picture in mind as well, because you've got to, yeah, you can understand the entire architecture of what's going on from a data flow standpoint. But if you're not like taking a step back and saying, okay, what do we really care about from a privacy standpoint? Um, I think that's where some people get lost, is like going so deep into the weeds of like how this thing works from an engineering standpoint. They don't take the step back to say, hey, um, you know, it's nice to know all of that, but like we really have also got to just like sit here and think at like a 1,000 foot level of what the impact is from a privacy perspective of what we're looking at.
Totally. And I mean, the conversations I've been involved with privacy engineering, right? Super intelligent, super like philomath type people, but like you said, their strength is engineering. It's not quite the legal requirements. It's not quite that cross-functional like conversation starting. And like you said, it has to be a conversation. There are so many functions involved in just a single privacy review that you can't rely on one job to get it done, even if they are really good at their specialty, right? You need a collaborative group, a working framework for that to really take off and succeed in your objectives.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you feel, but I mean, I feel a lot of what I'm doing is actually a lot of uh, sort of an interpreter role,
Yeah.
where, I mean, you know, I think I've posted about this on LinkedIn before, but I mean, a lot of times the stuff that people will bring to me is like, hey, can we move XYZ data set to this other data cluster? And you know, is that okay? And I'm like, well, I don't even know what is data is in XYZ
Yeah.
data set. You know,
What do you mean
why are
move?
you
Like,
moving
is it
into this
really just to that
cluster?
one location, or are there replications anywhere? Yeah. Like, who has
Exactly.
access to it? There's just a thousand questions that you help
Right,
translate.
exactly. So you have to, I mean, I think all the engineers I've dealt with are very smart. But it's figuring out they don't know privacy, and they shouldn't. I mean, that's not their job.
Yeah.
It's our job to know privacy. But like digging and finding out, okay, what is the actual privacy question we're trying to answer? I think um that's like, I don't know, 75% of what
Yeah.
I'm doing in these technical privacy reviews is, okay, I get what you're doing. Okay, what is the privacy problem we have here? And you know, you hear a lot of words um that are hard to understand, and I'm just trying to ask the right question to figure
Break
out
it
what the
down to its simplest form, right?
yeah,
And then we can
exactly.
build from
Yeah.
there.
Right, right.
Of course. Well, I have a good understanding, having worked with privacy engineers in my work. Now, I recognize maybe not all of our listeners have, especially if they don't work directly in privacy functions, and they might just be privacy nerds. Can you give us like an explain like I'm 5 level of what privacy engineering entails, and just common activities and how you
Sure.
think one could succeed?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's one of these things that is kind of amorphous, because there's folks that call themselves privacy engineers that are more like what I would consider software engineers creating privacy tools.
Mhm.
And you know, that's not something I do, but I mean, I don't think they're wrong. They call themselves privacy engineers, but
Yeah.
it's just completely different than what I do. And then there's, you know, other folks who are really getting into digging deep into privacy enhancing technologies, homomorphic encryption, differential privacy, all that very complicated.
Extremely
I-
technical. Oh my
extremely
God.
technical. I'm not good enough at
I mean, they're
statistics to
basically,
be.
inventing magic in some cases of like, how does,
Right.
like, I'm scratching my head. How does
Yeah, I
certain
mean,
layers of encryption work?
exactly. Like I go to that I'm on the program committee at Pepper, which is a privacy engineering conference, and like I guess probably half the conference is on yeah, differential privacy essentially, and is all very interesting, but I got to tell you, like it does make my brain hurt trying to understand that. And then there's folks like me who primarily what I do is technical privacy reviews, but also privacy by design work, and we uh have to be on call for privacy incidents. So if there's some kind of data leak, or I mean that's primarily what it is. If there's some kind of data leak, there has to be some kind of triage around how are we going to respond to that data leak? How do we determine if we need to notify our customers, or what exactly should we do about to resolve the issue? So that's part of it. But I mean the biggest, I would say 75 to 80% of what I do every day is technical privacy reviews. So and that could be different from what some people think of when they think of a privacy reviews, because a lot of people think of DPIAs or privacy PIAs, but you know, with technical privacy, you're really hitting it much early on. I mean, because a DPIA, you've got to actually have something that's been productized to
Yeah,
create.
shifting left even further from that
Exactly.
requirement and compliance stage and looking at it from a, hey, this is something we haven't even developed yet, but we need to integrate that expertise as
That's
we're
right. I
pushing
mean,
each
so I mean, a lot of
component.
times, yeah, they're coming to me with either just an idea and want to run it past me from a privacy perspective, or they're in the beginning phase of, and this is more most often, they're in the beginning phase of creating something, and they're like, oh, what are the privacy problems associated with what we're doing? So I mean, that's a lot of looking at data flow diagrams, understanding what personal data is flowing from end to end, and then looking at like their user interface, looking at the transparency in terms of consent that they might be giving, and that. But I mean, most of it, I would say, is really honing in on the data flow diagram, and then also looking at the data inventory. Okay, one, what data are we taking in? How long are we retaining it? What are we doing with it? What purpose? Why did we take this data in to begin with? That's a lot of what I do. So it's a lot of that, it's also kind of goes into data governance, because you see a piece of data like I don't know, a phone number, for example, and a phone number could be classified like several different ways. Like, because Rachel, your phone number would be definitely directly tied to you, but your phone number at Meta, that would also be directly tied to you. But if it was Meta's phone number, that's not,
Business
that's
phone
just
number,
tied.
right? It
Yeah,
becomes
exactly.
a
Right. So it's
different
completely different.
subcategory of sorts with different expectations and protections. Like I have to give my business, like, I'm gonna say back in the day, I never owned, the contact cards, the professional contact cards. I never had a book of my own of those, but essentially, like you're giving those out if you're giving away a work phone number, right? That's a you need to give it in order to do business, and that can
Right.
apply in a lot more less literal cases that I'm speaking to, but it is something meant to be distributed in a way on behalf of the company.
Right. I mean, yeah, so it's certainly less of a privacy concern about, you can easily find Microsoft's corporate phone number or Meta's if you went searching for it.
Right.
But and you could probably find my phone number and your phone number too.
Yeah.
But like that should be better protected than uh
Yeah.
Microsoft or Meta's phone
But
number.
but the moral of the story too is that the privacy engineering job aspects you're talking about can't be fully separated from other privacy job functions, such as, folks on more of the governance end of things, helping oversee and maintain and perhaps monitor the fact that data is only going where it should be and those systems are in place. You're actually, when I was saying shifting left, you're shifting left and then continuing throughout that whole life
Yeah.
cycle. So your knowledge has to be, spread across the entire, again, data management life cycle.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, you spoke to a strong thing. I mean, like collaboration also is just a huge part of it because I- like when you're taking something like a phone number, yeah, you and I just hashed that out and it's fairly straightforward, but there's a lot of things that are even more amorphous than that. And I can't, um, make these decisions on my own. So either, yeah, I've got to work with somebody in our data governance team or ask, other teammates, what their opinion is. I mean, I think that's just privacy in general is that you've got to talk to a lot of different people and especially when you're in large organizations like ours, to figure out, okay, what is it? Somebody knows the answer to this question. Who is it? And how do I get the answer to this question?
Of course. And I love the phone number example because like you said, it's a relatively easy one that most people can wrap their brains around, but you would be surprised at how much data, metadata can be considered personal information in the right context and the right settings. And it's thinking really critically about that while us also understanding the technical components, because those play a factor in how they interact with the user and how they're obtained and where they're used for what reason, right? Like it's not that we have this perfect short little list of like these things are personal and we we
Well,
only apply
yeah,
this process to these things. It's amorphous, as you mentioned.
yeah. I mean, I think that's we operate privacy in general. It's just a sea of gray
Mhm.
because yeah, there's no clear-cut answers. The GDPR or the CCPA or whatever privacy regulation you're looking at does not answer hard,
It's not a
most of the
formula at
questions.
all.
Yeah,
If
most of
anything, the number of them complicates the
it,
universe, and that's just privacy law, right? You're talking about
it,
competition law
yeah,
and
yeah,
integrity requirements. Things are interwoven, and sometimes they clash, and you have to make
right.
those tough decisions.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think that's what makes our job both interesting and challenging at the same time. Because I mean, I don't know, like for example, in these technical privacy reviews, I have, I don't know, maybe I don't know, 10 a week or so. And each one of them is very different. Some of them are very easy, but you don't really know, even like when you have something to look at beforehand, oh, this is what they're seem to be doing. You don't really find out until you start digging in and asking questions and like, oh, they said they were doing this, but they're really taking in this data. That's more of a concern. So yeah, you really are spending a lot of time.
Investigating, if you will, and
Exactly.
then summarizing, kind of
Right.
clearing those paths for decisions and options to be made when they might not feel as clear at the time, which can be a great thing for a business if you're talking about opportunities where you can balance the privacy requirements with those business requirements, right? And that's where asking the right questions, in my experience, might come off as, hey, like why is answering all these things necessary? But in reality, it can get us to the meets all perfect, for the most part, happy medium solution.
Absolutely.
With privacy engineering being, your current world, what if you had to pick one thing makes it the toughest gig? Like in I have expectations with asking that
Yeah.
question because I've worked with privacy engineers,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'd love to hear it from yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it really is sort of it, I think the lack, I think we've kind of touched on a couple of them. I mean, I think the complete lack of any kind of guidelines or not that there's no guidelines, but uh lack of really
Black and white level guidelines, right?
exactly. No, there's no black and white guidelines. So a lot of it you're really relying on your gut for like, okay, is this something that yeah, the GDPR doesn't touch this, but is this something that's going to get us in trouble with a regulator if we go down this path? Or, it's just, and even beyond that, I mean, yes, I don't want to get in trouble with regulators, but also I want to like be able to provide good value and good privacy fundamentals for our customers as well and build their trust. So, is this something that's really going to aggravate our customers if we do from a privacy perspective? So I mean, a lot of, and then if you're making a determination, hey, this is just really bad from uh, we're going to lose trust with our customers. Figuring out the right privacy argument to spin on that, other than like we can't tick off these customers with that.
Yeah.
Maybe
Telling that
it's
story is not easy, especially when, if the business has this golden vision of how it'll improve or
for sure.
create more value in their mind. It's not always the same incentives that we're looking at. And I think that's a big value out of privacy that perhaps not all organizations truly appreciate is the trust element, as you hit on. Like you can theoretically earn back trust, but like when we're talking about a data breach that costs, tens of millions of people information they
Right.
can't get back, like they're not incentivized to trust you again. That brand sticks around for years, for decades in some cases.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, you take a look at some of the big data breaches out there, like, 23andMe comes to mind
Yeah,
immediately.
I remember
Uh,
Equifax, like
yeah,
getting
yeah, Equifax,
literal
yeah.
credit monitor.
I mean, like, I don't know how. Yeah, I mean, I mean, Equifax, you can't get a bigger custodian of our actual data. So yeah,
Yeah, unchangeable data too. I have one
e-
social security number, right?
right, exactly, completely unchangeable data. So yeah, I mean, the keeping the trust there is it's super important. And so yeah, figuring out a way of making understanding where the business is coming from, because we can't I don't think you can do privacy in a vacuum and be like, oh, well, this is just bad from a privacy angle. Well, the business still has to make money. Let's just be honest. And so you've got to figure out creative ways of, okay, this is, this causes a problem from a privacy perspective. Let's figure out a way to help you do this without while respecting people's privacy.
Of course. And we've had a lot of great insight from you from kind of a day in the life perspective. And we just came off of talking about how it can be challenging at times. So when the going gets tough, where do you find your greatest amount of meaning as just a privacy professional and a privacy engineer to keep you grounded and focused?
I mean, I think burnout is a real thing in privacy because you're looking at the same. I mean, you're not looking at the same stuff. You're looking at different stuff, but you're asking the same questions. And then a lot of times you might be looking at things and being like, okay, there's really not an issue from a privacy perspective here. Like, why am I continuing to look at
Yeah,
this?
but
But
hours were tanked, right?
exactly,
11 privacy reviews do not, review themselves.
right. So you spend a lot of time doing this, but then you see like, okay, this is a major big issue. And then you figure out, okay, this is a big privacy red flag, and figuring out a way, for one, to make the engineering team understand why is a red flag, and two, coming up with something creative and seeing, hey, we were able to release that product, and I stopped it from having this detrimental privacy impact. I think that's what really, motivates me is
That
one,
risk mindset. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like, it's cool, working for companies where you actually get to see your products in the wild. And you see like, hey, I know pretty much everybody I know is using these products.
We worked
And
really hard on that release, making it safe
exactly.
and shippable, right?
Right, right. So you get that kind of feeling of accomplishment that, hey, that's out there, people are using it, and I made sure that it was safe from a privacy perspective.
I love to hear that. Um, I'll leave you with the last question before we sign off and say goodbye. Um, for engineers, software engineers, or adjacent looking to get into privacy engineering, what advice do you have for them to do that, perhaps without getting a full-blown law degree?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't recommend going to law school at all for anybody, unless you just want the academic pursuit. But yeah, I think there are ways of doing it. I mean, I think the best way is if you're in an organization that has some privacy people, uh, I, we will take any help we can get, and we will not refuse. I mean, I'm so thankful for the engineers that I work with that become privacy champions. I know I talk with them daily, and they really help. a ton. And especially like from the perspective of they understand the business of what is going on way better than I do. So being able to say, hey, I'm trying to understand what's going on here, and what the privacy impact may be. I mean, they've got it. I mean, they coded it, they know what's going on, so they can answer those questions better than I can. So, I mean, I think if you can get involved as a privacy champ, if your organization has that, or if they don't have a formal champ program, that's fine. Like I said, no, I don't think any privacy team is going to refuse help. So if you express an interest, I mean, you could probably get a project or be an advocate for privacy within your organization. And I think that kind of gives you the one, it can help you see, is this something I even want to do? And two, you have actual real life experience. I mean, I think certifications for the IPP are great and other places, but and I think those are good, helpful things for like building your knowledge and maybe getting your foot in the door. But and I don't think it really replaces like actual hands-on privacy experience. So I mean, I think any way you can get that, whether it's that or volunteering for an open source project with like EFF or something like that, I think it's great. Because I think that there's a lot of folks out there who have interest in privacy and have done certifications and things, but don't have like that hands-on experience. And I think it's there's certainly a door open for them, but it's an easier door to open if you actually have that hands-on experience.
Of course, and it comes out very clearly whether or not you've had that hands-on
For sure.
experience, should you want to apply for that next engineering opening at, say, a different organization in their privacy department, right? Like it's just such a when we talk to each other, we kind of compound off of our
Right,
experiences
right.
and we're like nodding, we're like, oh yeah, I felt that one. Like in the same vein, having projects and even just side projects for your previous organization, like that will come out. You'll run into the same problems, but you can't really anticipate what those are until you have the real environment around you and in a way simulating it, but hopefully in action to give you the real, I don't know, the push and impact that you need.
No, absolutely. I think you're 100% right there.
That's I absolutely love that we had the opportunity to hear from you as a privacy engineer. Again, I don't think there's enough appreciation and certainly enough hiring going on in that department, considering how much you can take on at certain organizations in a job responsibility. And like I said, very unique skill set to combine. And so I just want to thank you for your time today and exposing the world of privacy engineering to our listeners.
Well, I really appreciate you having me. And it's, like I said, I love talking privacy with anyone. And we've had a lot of asynchronous chats, so it's really great to be able to talk live with you and get to talk to everyone out there. So
Absolutely. I will include, if it's okay, some of your LinkedIn contact
yeah,
information in the places we post. Certainly, I'm sure folks might have follow-up questions for you or just want to read your awesome LinkedIn post. You're like at least once a week at this point, right?
I try, but yeah, I don't know.
Hey,
Sometimes
time
it
escapes
depends.
you, like we've
Yeah,
covered throughout the episode.
yeah, yeah. So,
Well,
well,
without further ado, I will leave one last statement. Not all of this content is, of course, that of our own, mine and John's that is, and isn't affiliated with any other organizations or employers, and are based on our own, time and effort and research. So with that disclaimer out of the way, final thank you to you, Jay, and we'll talk offline, I guess.
sounds great. Thanks, Rachel. Really enjoyed speaking.